The rain had turned ruthless, pouring down like it wanted to erase everything that existed on that deserted forest road. Mud, blood, and water mixed beneath. Jungkook as he struggled to breathe, his body trembling violently from pain and blood loss, his back pressed weakly against the tree. His vision flickered, but his eyes stayed locked on the man standing in front of him, the man who looked exactly like him. And then Yoongi smoked a slow, twisted smoke. Yoongi stepped closer, rain dripping down his face, his hair plastered to his forehead, yet his expression remained calm, dangerously calm. Without breaking eye contact, he slowly bent down and sat on his knees right in front of Jungkook, tilting his head slightly in a way that mirrored Jungkook perfectly. Jungkook's chest rose and fell heavily. "Who are you?" Jungkook asked, while his voice cracked, his hand pressing tightly against his bleeding stomach, his eyes filled with confusion and anger. Yoongi let out a low chuckle. "Oh, you don't recognize yourself?" Yoongi said while his lips curved into a mocking smile, his eyes gleaming with amusement. Jungkook's brow furrowed deeply. "Stop playing games," Jungkook said through gritted teeth while trying to sit up straighter despite the pain shooting through his body. Yoongi leaned closer. "So impatient," he murmured while shaking his head slowly. A pause, then his expression darkened. "I'm your worst nightmare," Yoongi said coldly while his gaze locked onto Jungkook's, his voice now completely identical to Jungkook's tone. Jungkook froze, his breath hissed. "What?" he whispered while his lips trembled slightly, his mind struggling to process. Yoongi chuckled. "You really don't get it," he said while straightening slightly, his eyes narrowing. Then he leaned closer again. "I'm Yoongi," he whispered slowly. Silence, thunder roared in the background. Jungkook's eyes widened completely. "No." He shook his head weakly, disbelief clouding his expression. "No, that's not true. Not possible." Yoongin's smile widened. "Oh, it is," he said while tapping his own cheek lightly, his tone almost playful. 8 years. I spent 8 years becoming you." Jungkook's breathing became erratic. "You are lying," he said while shaking his head again, his voice breaking. Yoonjin tilted his head slightly, mimicking Jungkook perfectly. "Am I?" he asked softly. Then his expression turned cold again. "I watched you, learned you, became you," he continued while his voice dropped dangerously low. "And now?" He paused, leaning closer. "I'll replace you." Jungkook clenched his fist weakly. "You are insane," he whispered while glaring at him, his jaw tightening. Yoonjin smoked. "Oh, I know," he said calmly. Then suddenly he paused, as if remembering something. His eyes lighted up slightly. "Oh wait," he said while looking at Jungkook, his tone shifting into mock curiosity. "I heard something interesting." Jungkook's breath hissed. Yoonjin leaned even closer. "You are going to be a father, right?" he said softly while raising his eyebrows slightly. A cruel smile forming. Jungkook's eyes burned with rage instantly. "Don't you dare!" Jungkook shouted while trying to push himself forward, his body screaming in pain. "Don't you dare touch them!" Yoonjin laughed loudly. "Oh, I'm going to," he said while nodding slowly, his tone dripping with cruelty. "I'll touch them, I'll be with them." He leaned closer to Jungkook's ear. "And I'll torture them," he whispered coldly. Jungkook's entire body tensed. He paused. Jungkook shouted while his voice cracked, his hands gripping the ground as he tried to move forward despite his injuries. "Why are you doing this?" His gaze shifted to your father. "And you," Jungkook yelled while his eyes filled with anger and desperation. "She's your daughter." Your father stood there completely unfazed, cold, unmoved. "She stopped being your daughter," he said calmly while looking down at Jungkook, his tone emotionless. "The moment she chose you." Jungkook froze. Pain flashed across his face. "You are sick," he whispered while shaking his head weakly. Then his eyes burned again. "If anything happens to them," Jungkook said while his voice turned dangerously low despite his weakness, "I will kill both of you. Yoongi chuckled. First, he said while standing up slowly, his eyes darkening. Save yourself. Jungkook's breath hissed. Yoongi turned and walked towards the car. The sound of rain intensified. Moments later, he turned, holding a heavy metal rod in one hand and a knife in the other. Jungkook's eyes widened. No, he whispered while shaking his head weakly, his body trying to move back but failing. Yoongi stepped closer, his expression completely cold. She chose you over me, Yoongi muttered while his grip tightened on the rod, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Before Jungkook could react, crack, the rod hit his head. Jungkook cried out in pain. Ah, he screamed while his body jerked violently, his hands trying to shield himself. Another hit, crack, and for 8 years, Yoongi shouted while hitting him again, his voice breaking with rage. I've watched you live my life. Jungkook coughed, blood spilling from his lips. Please, he gasped while raising his hand weakly, his voice trembling. Don't hurt them. He didn't. Yoongi didn't stop again and again, each strike fueled by years of anger. You don't deserve her, Yoongi yelled while striking him once more, his breathing heavy, his face twisted in fury. Jungkook's body weakened further, barely conscious now. Please, he whispered faintly, his voice barely audible. My baby. Yoongi paused, breathing heavily, looking down at him. Then something snapped. He threw the rod aside and suddenly he climbed on top of Jungkook, pressing his knees against his injured stomach. Jungkook screamed weakly. His body jerked as pain shot through him. Yoongi raised the knife, his eyes empty, and brought it down again and again and again. Each step brutal, relentless. Jungkook coughed blood, his hands weakly trying to push Yoongi away, but he couldn't. He was too weak. I am, he whispered faintly, his eyes losing focus. Yoongi didn't stop, not until he was satisfied. Finally, he stopped, breathing heavily, his hands covered in blood, rain washing it away slowly. Jungkook lay there, barely conscious, barely alive. Yoongi stood up slowly, his chest rising and falling. Then he casually threw the knife into the woods and kicked the rod away. The sound of rain broke the silence again. Yoongi wiped his face slowly, then turned towards your father, his expression calm again, cold. What now? Yoongi asked while his voice returned to that eerie calmness. Your father looked at Jungkook's lifeless body, then at Yoongi, and a slow smirk appeared on his face.